Hello, you're about to watch or listen to our backstage talks. And today we had a very interesting conversation with our team, and where we talked about André's history of being a non technical founder and then finding himself in our non-technicalfounders.com community and then becoming a PO working for non technical founders with Seasoned. We also talk about the several leaps we've taken as a company, and we're, for example, doubling for the second time this year. And we end with a story about how not to shatter someone else's dream, especially a non-technical founder's dream. Awesome. Welcome, team. Today we have André, Giovanni, and from now on, we'll always have Felipe here with us. That's amazing, man. Thank you for joining us as a host here. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. Thank you, André. Thank you, Giovanni. How are you guys?
Fine, thanks. We are very happy to being on this current sprint with a lot of challenges, and yeah, all right.
Let me start with a question. Giovanni, please be as brutally honest as possible. How to have been working on the same project for the whole year so far? Do you miss changing the the air?
Yeah, I think it depends on the week. Sometimes, yeah, because sometimes you get just working on the same thing, like, and it has some value, but it is totally different on working on a new project that everything it is a big value, like. So I think when we are into the details and it is not something too new for us, like for developers, it is kind of okay. This is boring. A new thing would be better, but it is a different project from the others. Like we had a lot of projects that it had a lot of challenges, but it's different because we are doing new things like A/B tests and other kind of things, working more on some features, like multiple versions of a feature.
Yeah.
It is something different for us. Like this is not compatible with the MVP that was like the best version that we think of, we deliver it, and now we just keeping working on those features. I think it is different. Depends on the week to be excited or
Yeah.
not about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna use the opportunity to comment on this. It's very different. The development you do for a startup that's later on the game is very different from the first cycles you do. When you do the first cycle, the first MVP, you create what you have in your mind, and you need to make it as small as possible so you can test what you have in your mind. When you have like thousands and thousands of people using your startup, your intuition still counts. My personal take on it is that I follow more my intuition than data. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but definitely data is more important. So, for example, in this project, we are testing our hypothesis with real users, and given the huge audience the startup has, it can give us statistically relevant data about user behavior and thus about their desires also. And I agree with you. It's been the whole year working on one project, but it's like every month we explore a new frontier on our own experience as a company, right? we as a company had never done A/B tests before that. We had never done a CMS, the content management system that's so complex as the one we have on this project. So, but it's also to compare like startups are so different, and sometimes even 1 year might make, I don't know, the world of a difference, both from the business and product standpoint, right?
Yeah, I was talking to Gabriel this morning, and we talked about how the dynamics of the project changes, even how we do our work as a product owners, right? Has this all these features being developed from the start, and we are building them in a block that is bigger to release until we have this opportunity to test with real users. And we see these dynamics of small changes that have a huge impact in the business, and it's very interesting to see the change in this dynamic of the backlog management, and it's really cool to see different projects happening at the same time and leading to different models of management.
So Felipe, today, not today, this week, we decided to take a leap as a company, and Felipe and everyone, of course, but I wanted to get your what's your gut telling you about this leap, the leap about growing more and earlier than we expected. How does it feel?
If you are talking only about the feeling,
Yes, yes.
Complete roller coaster. It's literally the sinking stomach feeling, not necessarily in a bad way. It's in an exciting way for sure, and a bit scary, very excited. Also, some recognition that been there, done that.
Yeah.
In this past 3 years, we have never had anything different, very different from either needing to run to get the clients or needing to run to deliver what we sold. There isn't very much in between. It's either or.
Yep.
So I think
we're either like desperately needing more clients or desperately needing more people. Not rarely we're in a stable position because we are a startup, right? So we the first years to me are like this.
Yeah, like when I have been working together for 3 years now, and since the start we aimed at 10, so yeah, we are still pretty early in the process.
Yeah, at 10 years, right, working together.
Yeah. So
and then we split.
Yeah. But since the beginning, I remember. In fact, I remember that the first idea of working with startups. The first time we talked about it, I raised it like, "Hey, since you have so much experience with startups, why don't we work with startups?" And he said, "Nah."
Yeah. I swear I wanted to bring this up today. it was in my mind. Remind me how that conversation went, because I literally remember the drawing you were making and where we were at my this same desk. I'm here, but the other place I used to live. I remember the drawings on the paper, but I don't remember how the conversation went. I remember dismissing the idea immediately.
We had been talking for months already. First, we approached each other because of business ideas, of affinity about how to run a business, let's say, or affinity about market views, right? We started having lunches and talking about that. After a few months, you invited me to be our partner to do something. And then we started meeting and talking, and every week I would come. I wasn't used to your flow of ideas yet. So every week I would come with to my wife and it's this, no, it's this, no, it's this. And she thought you were crazy. And in this process, we were brainstorming a lot. And well, using all the tools we had and mapping stuff and crossing over skills and who we knew, what kind of people we had access to and all that. And I know that in one of these, like one of the first ones was, hey, you are the startup guy. Why not? Why don't we focus on that? I wasn't technical at the time. I wasn't even thinking about coding at the time. So it wasn't obvious. It wasn't obvious. Yeah. It was way before. It was, I think, 6 months before our first gig. So we had literally anything could go. We could open a tango school for all I know. I didn't know.
Yeah. It wasn't obvious that we would be doing something in tech, right? We just wanted to do something together based on the principle of adding premium value before adding like mass consumption stuff. Like before reaching the masses, we would want to add all we had to a little group of people and grow on top of that. But you're right, it could be a bunch of things. And it's weird, I dismissed the idea of working, and I remember literally the first thought, not sure that was an actual thought, but the first feeling that came to me was, oh, but it's so hard to work with non-technical founders. And then we actually dismissed it for months before we revisited the idea. And for me, I think it was an internal process of accepting a call for adventure. The call for adventure was there, and when we started to think that this might be a good idea, I started to go places, I don't know, to events, etc. And everybody that reached out to me were non-technical founders. everybody. And I think I already told this story multiple times, but I'll tell it once again. I was doing a talk about burnout in social entrepreneurs, and I was telling about an experience I had having a dance school, a tango dance school, and having a burnout and deciding to close it, and discussing this, basically the fact that social entrepreneurs, I think, are burned out even more than less mission driven entrepreneurs. And the talk had nothing to do with startups. We were talking about everything else, and there were literally like 10 people watching. It was a very tight, intimate space on a huge event, but there were literally like 10, 20 people talking, and 4 of them were non-technical founders that when they didn't care about the burnout stuff. They just were there because they wanted to talk to me, because they were looking for a technical co-founder, and they knew what I had done in the past, and wanted either advice or wanted me to be their co-founder or something like that. So that was the nail in the coffin. But we were talking about the growth, right? Your reaction when I told you that we will probably close a deal that would have us take a leap of growth in the middle of a leap of growth, right? We decided, we just 2 months ago decided to grow the company by 50%. And then we just decided to grow the company by another 50%, like doubling. in 3 months. I don't know. When I told you that we were about to close that deal, your reaction was, of course, that what would happen. In how come that was your reaction?
Like I said before, 3 years working with you. full of surprises. Never a dull moment. No, but we had talked about that before.
Yeah.
We had done our simple but functional calculations, financial projections. Yeah, and we had seen that we couldn't stay where we were 3 months ago. It just wasn't sustainable, both for the people who were working and long-term financially. Like we needed more leadership, we needed more structure, we needed more everything. And so we had talked about it, and I think the surprise was more like, okay, growing from 1 to 2 projects, from 2 to 3, that was the simultaneous projects, right? So running 2 at the same time to running 3 at the same time, thinking about that long term, because keeping 3 running is different. Like you need more clients and you need more structure to keep 3 running, right?
You need a pipeline of potential clients.
Exactly. So it was more in this sense. We need a pipeline to keep the structure going. And when we are starting the process of building this pipeline, both from the sales and from the production perspective, suddenly we need another one. That was actually the surprise, right? Like, okay, this new one, is it going in the pipeline to become like a safe third, let's say? Or no, it's going to be a fourth. So we need an even wider pipeline. Like that was let's say the surprise, but yeah, we had actually talked about it.
It's definitely a tough decision, right? The thing to me that makes it the logical or the right decision is that if you need to build a pipeline and you need to go all in building a pipeline that will fulfill 3 clients at once, it doesn't make much of a difference. From the marketing standpoint, you need to have a sales marketing sales pipeline that fulfills three projects at once, and you need a leadership team, a culture, and a team that are able to deliver 3 projects at once. All the big investment needed for 3 would gain scale going to 4. So it makes 100% sense when you think like this. Of course, you need to double down on the strategy for it to work, because it is not as easy. It's just easier when you compare to the previous jump.
I'm curious how that impacted other people in the team. So you that are here, you want to comment?
I think that for the developers, it is like setting the wheel in movement. And I am feeling more impacted by working on long projects than by the growing of the company. Like we are the teams are very separated by projects. So we don't feel the impact of one more project. Probably the person that work on all projects are feeling that. But we are not. I feel that we are not yet. Like we have bigger things to deal with before that.
And André joined us to be part of this the first leap of growth, the second leap of growth this year, I would say, because we started the year by doubling the company, and now we're doubling it again. So, and André, did you feel that something was happening? Like everything was like not stable when you joined us?
Yeah, I felt like that a little bit. It's really cool because I entered at season like 2 months ago, approximately, and I already felt that we were in this moment of growing, and and I worked on a mapping process of this project, and it was a very intense mapping. It was really cool to understand the new product and to see and to learn all the process at season in the same time. I was working on this mapping, and so I was feeling this excitement in the company about like we're growing. It's a new moment for the company, and later Daniel came in and said, "Guys, we are growing more." So it's really cool to see that, and I am curious about the early growings. Right, we talked about season uh, went through periods of growing, and I am seeing this growing right now. I am curious about how this growing right now is compared to another moments of season. What new challenges do you guys feel are happening at this moment?
I think it's like the development of a company is like the development of a person, of a baby, and then a children, and then a young person. Because in the beginning you cry a lot. No, not only that, it's things are more intense when you're less mature. And what I feel now is that this wave of growth is so much better than the previous one, because we have more people to rely on, in a great team to rely on. And when it was just the two of us and we had to, for example, the first leap in terms of growth for season was from 2 people to 6 people in 1 month. Like it was tripling, even though it was very small, it was tripling the company. But when inevitably things didn't go as expected with the projects, we only had ourselves to like rescue the projects and make sure we delivered value to the clients. Right now, we not only have other people to rely on, and we need less rescuing in the first place, much less rescuing in the first place, but we have more people to give support to the projects if we need to rescue. And there's a third thing that's the best one, is that even if we wanted to, we wouldn't be able to rescue the project because we're so busy with other stuff that that it would be on my end, for example, it would be irresponsible to focus on one project and forget the big picture, because right now I'm personally responsible for many families. Of course, not I'm not the only responsible, but I'm the person that's more responsible for this. So I don't. It would be irresponsible to go and say, "Oh, let me wear my cape, the superhero cape, and rescue this project," and then everything else would fall apart. Doesn't make sense. So I have a strong incentive to remain calm, and that's good because then I use the incentive as much as I can. How was it for you, Felipe? And then I'm gonna ask Giovanni, because Giovanni was part of the first growth.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask first, like Giovanni, because Giovanni we went from 2 to 8 people.
Oh, it was 8?
1 month.
Sorry.
Yeah. I counted. So and Giovanni was one of the 8. Like literally, I got a 1 week break. The company had 4 people. When I came back, it had 8 people.
Totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't. So how was it?
I think that thinking about, and now that we have a lot of process, it is like, okay, we talk like 1 time per week. At like the communication was rare. Like we worked a week and talked 1 time per week. It is crazy because right now, like we start the day speaking with each other and answering everybody. So this kind of contact, it is kind of crazy now. Uh, but yeah, I think that it was like building this process to have space for all people and to have a better delivery, a better communication between the team. But right now, even I think that we have some silos yet, like developers in marketing is the 2 places that we don't talk. We try in some meetings, but I think we have this path of integrating more people and more teams did a good improvement on the company, and I think that doing more of that, it is good because it is um, giving great results. So let's keep with that.
Let's. I want to change the subject a little. I wanted to ask André about his experience being the non-technical founder of a startup, and then let's start with this, and then how was the transition of from a non-technical founder becoming someone that works on projects for non-technical founders. But let's start. I wanted to hear just your general experience as a non-technical founder of startup. In
Yeah, right. It was a journey. It's a long journey. I started in design. I was working with UX design at the time, and I started to work as a product designer too. And I have this background in architecture and design, so it was really a challenge to start a project with a friend that was non-technical too. And I think that the most difficult challenge was to understand how the technical world uh, worked. So we had all these ideas, and we started to define these ideas. And I was drawing the app, and it was a really cool moment. But it's very hard when we don't understand the technical side of the software development. And it came at one point that we knew that we needed a developer, and it was really difficult to find this person. We didn't understand how this would work. And I met Lucas at architecture school. Lucas, one of our POs too. And we started to talk about these things about startups and building products. He showed me Season at the time, and I thought that I I started to think that it's a really cool place to be, like uh, Season conciliate these technical aspects, and with non-technical aspects of software development. And with a design background, I didn't see at the time how I could work with the technical side. I now see more clearly, like a designer, a product designer can, even don't know in the technical aspects of product development, can represent this technical side, gathering the information, understanding requirements. And so this transition was more like not knowing the technical aspects to understand the aspects in the general aspects, and now working with this technical side, but representing this technical side to the client. I didn't know if I answered this question, but
Yeah, definitely. And after meeting Lucas, you participated a little bit on our non-technical founders community, right? And one thing that, man, if we could do one thing as a company, as a culture, that I think would really make a difference, it would be to make non-technical founders talk more to one another and share more their struggles, their learnings, etc., etc. Everybody's so worried, so filled with pride, um, that they don't want to look bad to other entrepreneurs, especially being non-technical, because they are already treated with condescendence by technical people and investors. So they are afraid to share their struggles. But if we could pick one thing we wanted to achieve, is to have an active community of non-technical founders that really learn together. In your experience participating a bit of the community we started to build last year, were you able to learn from other non-technical founders at that time?
yes, in the community, I was thrilled by this sentiment of sharing struggles, sharing issues about the process of building a product that's in many cases a dream of the founders,
Yeah.
right? So I felt like this was a nice community to understand others with the same struggle and be understood. And I think this feeling of sharing problems and looking for a better view of the problem, understanding the technical side, it was really cool. Non-technical founders, the community was one of the ways I came into Lucas. Actually,
Oh, it
I
was, got it. You got
yeah.
together. You got closer to him because of the community.
Yeah, we like I said that we met at the college, but we didn't talk too much. And when I started to work with UX design, I I discovered that Lucas was working with UX too. So I was talking to him in LinkedIn, and we talked about UX design, about startups, and at the time I talked to him, and he showed me non-technical founders, the community, and since then we started to talk more and talk about the issues of building a product, of building a startup. So non-technical founder was a way of uh, a starting point of our conversation about this.
That's awesome. It's awesome because my feeling, to be honest, was that um, there wasn't much sharing going on, at least for my expectations, because I felt, of course, first of all, we needed to work more and longer on the community for people to start trusting one another and evolving, and we're gonna get to that eventually. But also I was feeling the yeah, this some of it is part of the startup culture. People are actually afraid of failure, even though they are at the business where they are most susceptible to failure. They are afraid of failure because of how it will look to others. And it shouldn't be like this, because it looks great when you learn from something. The biggest learning I had in my life, I think, when it comes to business, was when my dance school failed as a business, and I literally had to spend months absorbing this and studying it and trying to understand what went wrong. And when it came the time to do something new, I had the greatest learning experience. And part of it was with Felipe, because Felipe showed me one of the aspects that I could have done different in my um, school, that would probably have changed everything. The market was still too small, so I don't know if it would have been sustainable in the long run. That's another lesson. Choose a market that's um, big enough for you. But yeah, in the community, most, I don't know, if out of 100 people, most of them will fail, but they will do something afterwards together, or not, or with someone. So learning together is more important than succeeding for me.
Yeah, it's curious about like we read a lot in the books, fail fast, but we usually don't share our failures. And I think the community enables this space of sharing our failures. And right, only I think only when we share our failures with other people that are struggling with the same problems or uh, similar problems, that we can understand more clearly about our failures and what we could be different. So I think the community has this aspect very strongly about not just encourage the failure, but sharing the failure and change this experience.
I have a question to Daniel, for Daniel. Like, you mentioned you mentioned how we decided to follow this service model and etc. We ended up building what has become Seasoned. But we didn't have the issue of needing a technical co-founder. So why didn't we build a product company instead of a service company?
I don't think it's related to needing a technical co-founder or not at all. It's There is one aspect of it which is important, and that is, we wanted to pay our rents, pay our bills, and we didn't have money to invest, and we didn't want to get into debt, and we didn't want to play with other people's money. So it had a lot to do with circumstance. We were not um, living with our parents. We were old already, getting old, and this is important, but it's definitely not the most important thing. The most important thing for my decision to create a service company instead of creating a product startup is that I wanted to work closely with more people. And I'm not talking about the team only, because you can grow a team with a product startup, but for you to get to a huge team on a product startup, you need a lot of investment or a lot of revenue. So we can work closely as a team. And for example, right now, we're bringing people with a level of experience that wouldn't even make much sense on a product startup to the team, but it makes perfect sense on our company because we need strong technical leadership or strong leadership, even if it's not technical. And a service company has more room for executives or executives, even in a small sense, not um, someone that only have meetings all all the day. But the part that captivates me the most is working closely with the clients. I have the opportunity to ask every day a client, how has the experience been so far? And I can see in their faces if the experience, it doesn't matter what they say, I can see their faces if the experience has been good or not. And I can get into detail when I want to know more. And I can apologize in person when we make a mistake. And when you have a product startup, you can make the effort to get to know your users, but it's not baked in. You need to do it on top of the, not on top, but in spite of the tendency, the natural tendency of the model is to work with numbers, to with growth, and the user become a number in your mind. And that's for me. I don't know if I knew it at the time we started, we decided to create a service company, but it definitely makes me whole much more than if we were just wanting to grow a product.
That
How was it
might,
for you?
I will answer, but first I wanted to comment that that might sound strange because we do understand about startups, we do have technical expertise, and we chose not to play the same game, even
What a
though
waste.
exactly like, oh, but why not? You have everything. But we made
What
a
a waste.
very conscious decision to not play this game. So
Yep.
we are in the same field, but not play the same game. And that was a very conscious decision. And I
Yep.
think that was one of the factors that why not to work with them at first. Like, I think it didn't feel like we don't want to play this game, because if we wanted to play that game, we would be playing that game.
Yep.
So I think that was one of the first reactions. Why not work with startups? Wait, we don't want to play the startup game. Hey, that doesn't mean that we can't play a close game, a game that involves them, right? So we are in the middle of these people, these founders, these markets, this culture. But also one thing that we knew from day one, we did not want a typical startup culture. We had Seasons culture way before we had Seasons name, logo,
Team.
business, team,
Yeah.
anything. Way before the team. Like, we knew that we both wanted to work. We didn't want to kill ourselves for the work, whatever it was. And we didn't want to, like, I think we can say we wanted to bootstrap it. Like, we wanted to make it run with its own resources.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a safe way to say it. And that's just the kind of game that we started talking about, this kind of game, and hey, that kind of game is kind of cool. And that's how I would like to play it. Hey, me too, cool. Shall we play that then? Okay, with what? I don't know, but that's the game we wanted to play, and then we found out where to play it.
Yeah. And after we started Seasoned, I came across the theory. I think it's a couple of articles. I don't know if someone explored it more, of the idea of selling peak access to people in a gold rush, which is a thesis about a way to operate in markets. When there is the legend that Levi Strauss started selling jeans to gold diggers on the because it suited them. I don't think it's true, the story, but it's a good story anyway. And they made more money. That part is true. The people that were selling tools for people to dig for gold made much more money overall as a market than the people who actually stroke for gold. In the original gold rush, they have this data. Right now, we can see what we do as something similar, like helping people that want to hit the jackpot somehow, and we can increase their chances. I don't know, but selling the right pickaxe at the time might increase their chances. I don't know. But I know that we increase the chance that a non technical founder succeeds in the startup world. And by doing that, we are not taking the risk of the downside of creating a startup, but we are not aiming for the same level of upside also. We're aiming to provide a service. And that's wonderful to me. It's I'm not risk averse. I like risk in the sense, and it's not that I like risk, it's that things that people think are risky do not seem risky to me, and things that people think are safe feel like very risky to me. For example, a job is the riskier thing I can imagine in my life. I know I have no control whether the company I'm working for is going to be around a year from now. But of course, because when I start my company, I have control. That's the comparison I have. But I kind of lost track here. Yeah, I was saying, um, even though I see risk differently, and I like risk, I'm comfortable, very comfortable in aiming for a smaller upside, but with a much, much, much bigger cultural upside and human upside. We are creating a much bigger network of talented and skilled people around something that's very important when we create a service company, a dev shop. And I know that whatever I decide to do after a season, if I ever decide to do something else, it would be much easier with what we're building also. So it's makes much more sense to me than playing the roulette.
I think I have a question about this process of growing, and you were talking about control, and now you and Felipe are losing control of some parts of the company because other people will be responsible for it. So
Yeah,
how it is for you, like letting go some part of the process?
it's not that part that I want to control. So I don't suffer with it. I, I really, really, really don't want to control the smaller picture. I want to control the big picture. For example, when I was working for an incredible startup here, an e-commerce startup here in Brazil, they they had great positioning in terms of marketing, but they didn't know they had. So they couldn't make the best of it, in my opinion, right? I was the technical person on their team, and eventually I almost became their CTO and partner. But I so badly wanted to influence the broader direction the company would go. I In other words, I wanted to do what my bosses were doing, not what I was supposed to do. So I don't mind um, not having control over the process when I trust the leaders that are leading the process. They don't have control. Nobody has actual control, but we have influence, right?
Um, my view is simpler than that. Like, Season is my first company. I was a freelancer for most of my time before it, and it's already the place I worked for most time. So I'm much of a doer still. So I'm used to doing stuff and being directly involved with them. So the first time we had, like, when you entered, Giovanni, and you had a whole other team that I wasn't aware of. Like, it was a very strange feeling. Like, wow, there's something happening. I don't even know what's happening. Like, way back then. I got used to that over time. For me, it's still a bit hard to know, like, exactly where to act, where to influence, when to withdraw, when just stay quiet and let things roll. My first instinct for a problem isn't, oh, do we have budget? Just let's look for someone awesome to do it. My first instinct is, okay, how do I do it? So I'm still in the process of adapting for that. Like, okay, what are the resources? How to think like an actual, it's a company, we have resources, we have people, we can have leadership, like, who do we know? So it's still very new to me. I still struggle sometimes. So sometimes it's better, it's easy. I just know, like, okay, I can just help here, here, and here, and it works awesome. And sometimes I think I am doing just enough, and I'm touching too many things, and I'm removing the independence of everybody in the team involved in the thing I'm doing. So it's tricky.
Reached our time here, but I wanted to end with a story because André earlier said that for most people on the non-technical founders community, it was not only their startup, it was their dream, right? And I think um, Giovanni and Felipe already know this story, but you don't, Andre. We had a client where we we are not delivering the best results for him, and he was ahead of us by seeing that the project was headed in a wrong direction. And then he called us on a meeting and he said straight to me, "You have the power to destroy my dream." And he said in strong words. And it was most impactful because even though I knew it, having someone saying that to me helped as a reminder of the level of responsibility we have. On one end, we only need to be better than the alternatives because we if we're better than the alternatives, we are already providing more value to him. The dream would be destroyed anyway if he was working with someone worse than us. That's one part of the perspective. But the other part of the perspective is we're actually working on something that represents the dream of someone. And we are responsible for addressing the issues we have that might break the dream that this person has. And the least we can do is to be self-aware enough to know, all right, you're right. When I first rejected your idea that the project was heading in the wrong direction, I didn't know all the details. But after talking to you, I went back, investigated, and understood, yeah, we need to make changes on the team to address this. So the least we can do is that. And the worst thing that would happen, um, from an emotional point of view, would be for us to shatter someone else's dream, right? Because we did not deliver on our promises. So it's great to have the opportunity of hearing this directly at least once and remembering it as often as possible. All right. I love this conversation. Thank you guys for being here today and for being here every day, actually, for the work we do together. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Bye
you
bye.
guys.